Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take time and take live questions. But most of the time, we don't have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. But I want to make sure those questions get answered in a video, so I gather them up and we address them here. This is going to be a long one because we've got this past Friday's leftover questions, and today's Mondays as well. And today is, of course, Monday, May the 6th. So we've got Friday's questions and Monday's questions that we're going to get caught up on now. So let's not waste any more time and jump right to it. And our first question we're going to start getting caught up today comes to us from Noel Nguyen, who writes, what's your favorite aspect of film and what films are good examples of that? Cinematography, score, editing, costumes, etc. For me, it's music and score. Well, honestly, and I don't mean this to be a cop-out answer, it's directing. Because great costumes are good. Great music is good. Great set design is good. Great performances are good, but if it's not all gathered together and pieced together in the appropriate way to tell a coherent story that is well-paced and hits the right notes of dynamics that it needs to, then none of the rest of it matters. So to me, it's going to be direction. A great example of that recently is what John Krasinski did with Quiet Place. I mean, without dialogue, it was a great environment. It was a cool story. They put in some great visual effects. But it's just that it was all put together with understanding how to communicate what is happening to the audience in a way that is engaging and thrilling and all that kind of stuff. And that's just a great example of it. So for me, it's direction. All right, moving on here. Daniel Shatford writes, can you settle an argument I'm having with a friend? No spoilers. She's saying they cut parts of Captain Marvel out of Endgame. First of all, no, they didn't. Because her film didn't do well critically or financially. Please explain. Okay. First of all, you're wrong. They're wrong on all three counts. Number one, last time I checked, and it's been a while admittedly, but Captain Marvel was sitting around 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a really good critic score. Also, it made over $1 billion. That's amazing. Most MCU movies do not hit the $1 billion mark. So it did very well critically. It did extremely well financially. And no, they didn't cut her scenes out. As a matter of fact, I almost felt like they added extra scenes. So no, they did not cut any scenes of Captain Marvel out of Endgame. If they did, it was just some like random miscellaneous stuff like any character would have cut out. But no, there were nothing major cut out of Captain Marvel. So that's just an idiotic thing to say, to be honest with you. Noel writes, Chris Pratt is in 3 of the top 5 domestic grossing films of all time right now. How about that? Yep, he is now. That doesn't really mean anything because like in one of them, he's in the movie for like 10 minutes and it's just basically a glorified cameos, maybe got 1 or 2 lines. But he is in them. Just like you can say Zoe Saldana is now in the 2 top grossing films of all time. She's in Avatar and she's in Avengers Endgame. So you can say that too, but it is kind of funny when you think of it in those terms. All right. Noel also writes, I meant top 5 opening domestically. No problem, Noel. I think we got what your gist was. Don't worry about it. Timothy Platt writes, saw Stuber last weekend. I'm really looking forward to that movie. I haven't seen it yet myself. Really enjoyed it. Comedy is probably the most subjective genre, but I loved it. I'll tell you what, I thought it sounded dumb. And then in Las Vegas at the annual CinemaCon conference, they showed us like a big chunk of it, like 10 minutes of it. And I loved what I saw. Loved it. I mean, I love Kumail Nanjiani, and of course you got Dave Bautista in there too. But I thought it was just going to be some stupid throwaway 80s style comedy with Dave Bautista in it. It looks great. I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. I can't wait to see it myself. Carlos Matos writes, Endgame did a poor job of marketing to new viewer. Oops, they did. They did until April 2nd. April 2nd, it all changed. See, I had been criticizing Endgame up until April 2nd. I said, you know, the trailers are great. The trailers are great. However, I said at the time, they're really only appealing to existing MCU fans, of which there were an ass ton. There are a ton of existing MCU fans. But I said, unlike the Infinity War campaign, which really did do a lot to try to bring in new audiences. Like, hey, if you've never seen an MCU movie, look at this. You got to see this, right? And up until April, I felt like the trailers are good. The trailers are really great. They're getting the fan base excited, including me. but I didn't think that they were doing much, if anything, to getting new viewers on board. Well, I had predicted before that I believe on April 2nd, they're going to put the tickets on sale, and that when they put the tickets on sale, they're going to drop a new trailer, and a part of that trailer will be a few more exciting elements than the other one, and it will end with the terms, tickets on sale now. Now, was that trailer as huge of a boom as, say, some of the Infinity War trailers were? No, I call it semi-boom or quasi-boom, but it had boom to it, just, not as boom as Infinity War was. But it wasn't that one trailer alone. What happened was, up until that point, Marvel had spent about $50 million in marketing. From April 2nd to when the movie opened, they spent an additional $150 million in marketing. They spent $200 million marketing. And from April 2nd to when the movie opened, almost all of that marketing budget was on television, targeting the casual at-home moviegoers. And they just hammered them over and over and over again. Almost in the last 2 weeks, going down to Endgame, it's almost like they put out a new TV spot every single day. I mean, some people were starting to complain. There's too much. You're showing too much. Really, they weren't showing too much, but it was like a new TV spot was coming out almost every day. So yeah, I still stand behind my thought that, hey, trailers were great, and they were getting all of us excited who were already on board with the MCU, of which there are a lot of us. But I didn't think up until April they were doing much to appeal to the casual fan, to maybe the people who haven't gotten on board with the MCU, like Infinity War had gotten non-MCU people excited. But that all changed in April. Once they dropped that trailer that ended with tickets on sale now, and then they just flooded the TV airwaves with $150 million worth of ads, the biggest marketing campaign Marvel has ever done. And they changed the narrative at that. But up until April, I totally say, yeah, they weren't doing a good job of marketing to new viewers. But that was by design. They were first invigorating the existing fan base, of which there were a lot of us. And then after April, they went full hardcore to reaching people at their homes, going right through the television screens, putting on TV spots, and just hammering it and hammering it and hammering it. And it changed the narrative. Richard Walton writes, John, have you ever Avengers just made so much? Honestly, Richard, I'm sorry, my brother. I don't know what it is you're asking. Sorry about that. Ryan Lohner writes, Peter Mayhew is getting his medal in heaven. Yeah, I mean, now, of course, this past week was the passing of Peter Mayhew, yet another one of our Star Wars icons and legends passing away. And of course, the biggest thing that I always joke about is the fact that, Chewie never got his medal. Well, he's getting his medal now, and good observation, Ryan. Thanks for sending that in. Richard Walton writes, the Avengers has made so much money. Oh, yes. There you go. Yeah, we talked about it on the John Campea Show earlier today about, it was the fastest film ever to 2 billion. It last week set the opening weekend box office record by a mile. This week, the second weekend of all time, only behind The Force Awakens, and just by like that much. It's past Titanic for the number 2 all-time box office film already, and it's on its march to Avatar. It's huge, man. It's absolutely huge. Richard Walton writes, John, I find myself rewatching trailers for the DCEU movies over and over to this day. Some of the best trailers of all time. Dude, I'm telling you what, say what you want about the DCEU movies. Their trailers are the best. I remember, like I said, whether you love or hated Batman vs. Superman, that trailer for Batman vs. Superman was just chilling. I loved it. And I think they've done a great job with all their trailers. I thought the Suicide Squad trailers were great. The Wonder Woman trailers were great. Batman vs. Superman trailers were great. The Justice League trailers were great. The Aquaman trailers were great. The Shazam trailers were great. They always do a great job with their trailers, so full marks to them on that. Jennifer Morales writes, Russo said the spoiler ban lifts Monday. Thoughts? Okay, so this is obviously from Friday. They said that, and what I said was tough. The Russos may not respect my viewers, but I do, and there's a bunch of my viewers that haven't had a chance to see it yet, so no spoilers. But then we found out today on Monday why they said the spoiler review lifted on Monday, because they knew the new Spider-Man trailer was dropping. That is chock full of spoilers, including the biggest and most important spoiler, that being about Tony. So that's why they said it, and that does change the game. So there you go. Those are my thoughts, Jennifer. Eustace, let me see if I can say this. Paschalis, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, forgive me, writes, hope this reaches Marvel. Fancast, MCU's Hercules, Joe Manganiello as Hercules, A. Molina as Zeus, T. Hanks as Hades, Clive Owen as Ares. Thoughts? Welcome. Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't get into, John, what do you think about X actor in X role? I don't care about those. To me, as long as you get talented actors, that's all that counts. Nothing else matters. That's really all that matters to me. But hey, I like all the actors you just mentioned, so sure, Tom Hanks can be anything. I really like Joe Manganiello. Good Hercules? I don't know, maybe. But as long as you cast talented people, that's all. I don't care if they're famous or not famous. I don't care if they're been in huge movies or not. All I care about is, are they talented? Because if they're talented, you could turn out with something pretty good. And I like all the actors you named, so why not? Why not indeed? All right, Louis Rex this writes, oh my Ghibli John, I'm finally seeing Endgame for a second time on Sunday. Can't wait to see the new things that I catch. Yeah, and you know what? It is one of those movies because there's so much going on in Endgame that I found right up to my fourth screening that there was new little things that I was catching that I had not caught in previous screenings. Including things some people had to point out to me, like Korg and Meek. I didn't realize they were in the big final battle until somebody pointed out to me. But every screening I saw had these little things that I never caught before, because it's just a movie that's packed with so much stuff that you're definitely going to see things that you didn't see before, Louis. All right, Joseph Mitchell writes, it's crazy to think now the MCU has 5 of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. Wow, really? Is it just the MCU? Hold on, let me pull this up here. Maybe if I spell it right. There we go. Box Office Mojo. Okay. So we're going to all time. Let's see here. So we already know we got Endgame in there, and we got Infinity War, and we got Avengers, and we got Age of Ultron, and Black Panther is the number 10. That's right. So the MCU right now has the number 2, the number 5, the number 7, and the number 9, and the number 10 all-time worldwide box office films. That is crazy. And this is also crazy. Disney is the owner of all 5 of the top 5 of all time list. Disney owns Avatar now. They own Avengers Endgame. They own Titanic now. They own Star Wars Force Awakens. They own Infinity War. So how's that for dominating the market? Oh my gosh. Nicholas Cruz writes, next great movie franchise that can equal Marvel. Oh, who knows? It's one that hasn't been brought up yet. It's one that hasn't been thinking. Look, Marvel will come and go, just like everything comes and goes. It's just about a matter of how big of a splash do you make when you're around, and then how long do you stick around. But it could be anything. I mean, I couldn't, if I could tell you what it definitively would be, I'd be the CEO of one of the major studios right now. But it's going to be something that comes out of, you know what the funny thing is? For 22 years, or at least for the last 10, the number 1 and the number 2 all-time films, Titanic and Avatar, are films that were not part of a film franchise, not part of a shared cinematic universe. They were solid standalone films that came out of nowhere and captivated the pop cultural consciousness. And I think the film, there's a very good chance the film that eventually beats Endgame is going to be another Marvel film, or a DCEU film, or a Star Wars film, or one of the regular, usual suspects. But it also very, very well could be one of those films that's like a Titanic, that's like an Avatar, that comes out of nowhere and just captures everybody's imagination. As far as the next great franchise, who knows? It could be anything. Could be anything at all. Bruce Gordon writes, studios use test audiences and films get changed. Minor. See, when studios go, there's a misnomer about test screenings. Some people think they go in and test screen it and they'll change anything. No. Movie studios, they already know what their movie is. They've got their movie pretty much locked. but they've got a few little details that they're going to keep an eye on. Like maybe we just edit this a touch, edit that a touch. They play it for a test audience, see how it plays and do that. There's never been a movie that does a test audience and goes through massive revamping. If it's ever happened, it's happened like 1 out of every 5,000 movies. Okay, so it's extremely rare. For the most part, there's a few small things that the studio wants to play for audiences. And really, too, it's not about changing the movie. It's about getting a sense about how is the audience reacting to it so they know what to prepare for, but also seeing what aspects of the movie do the audience really respond to so they know how to take that and utilize it in their marketing campaign. So really, test screenings are more about all that stuff than it is about changing things. It's changing things to a very minor degree. Hardly ever is it about wholesale revamps. Very minor changes. It's mostly about gauging the audience reaction to know what to prepare for and also see what they responded well to so they know how to focus their marketing campaign. That's the majority of the stuff for there. RJ Mills writes, John, I still don't know why you don't consider Detective Pikachu a video game movie. Detective Pikachu is an actual video game. I don't know how many times I can say it, RJ. I've said it a million times. I acknowledge that technically speaking, Detective Pikachu started as a video game. I've said that 1,000 times. Technically speaking, it is. I don't consider it that because when you talk to most people they just think of Pikachu as being an anime property. I think most average people who don't follow that stuff, they don't realize Pikachu or whatever starts a video game movie. So most people's consciousness, it's an anime property. So technically, yes, I'll say it all day long. Technically speaking, it is a video game movie, but I don't consider it as such. Even though technically that's what it is. Emmanuel Ibanez writes, 125 to 130 million Detective Pikachu opening. I don't know, man. That seems ambitious. That seems really ambitious. Let me take a look here. Because last I saw, I thought it was tracking like 70. Box office tracking. Let's see what they say here. All right, so about a week ago, it was tracking about a 75 million plus opening. Now, sometimes we see tracking numbers go up, sometimes they go down, whatever. But I think 125 to 130 might be a little bit out of range, especially considering Endgame is only going to be in its third weekend. I think there's a chance Pikachu can be the #1 film at the box office over Endgame that weekend. But with Endgame eating up so much box office, I don't know if there's enough there for Pikachu to make 125 to 130 million. It'd be great if it does. I'm actually going to go see Detective Pikachu tonight. Fingers crossed, I love it. And if it is, maybe you'll get to that type of heights, but I think that might be a little bit ambitious. Orange Hand writes, Tiny Quibble, Mind Stone Yellow, Scepter Gem Blue. I can't even remember the colors, so I can't even comment on that. Max Newmark writes, the original designer for Sonic wasn't on board with the new design. That's why they're redesigning Sonic for the film. No, it's not. The original designers for Sonic weren't on board long before they put the trailer out. That's not why they made the change. Ryan Lohner writes, the trailer for Alien is a work of art on its own. There's never been another like it. I can't even remember the trailer for the original Alien. I just remember the original Alien is boss. I mean, that's an amazing movie, but I don't even remember the trailer other than in space, nobody can hear you scream. But other than that, I really don't remember much about it. But now you've got me totally curious. Now I got to go back. I've got my YouTube channel open here. Let me get a second here. Let me just mark this. I'm probably now when the show's done, I'm going to go over and watch that trailer again because now you got me excited. All right. Ben Rayner writes, over under 10% James Cameron will want to re-release Avatar to keep Avatar in the #1 spot. Again, we talked about this the other day. He has no say in that, whether or not he would want to. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is re-releasing, like some people think, oh, if you re-release it, it makes $700 million more. Re-releases really don't make much. There's been the odd occasion when something has, but if somebody wants to watch Avatar, they can watch it at home. Anybody who would be kind of thrilled to run out to the theaters and watch Avatar again, they probably already own it on Blu-ray. So let's say that Endgame passes Avatar by like $300 million. Well, you can re-release Avatar all you want. It's not going to catch it. I mean, okay, look, yeah, if Endgame ends up passing Avatar by $25 million, okay, then re-releasing Avatar may put you back over the top. But it really would kind of be a moot point, I think, for the most part. Let's see here. Yoshai writes, going to a wedding in Michigan, I love Michigan, and seeing Avengers Endgame for the second time, but it'll be my first time at an AMC theater. Dude, that's awesome, but it's only really awesome if you get to watch it in one of their Dolby AMC Prime theaters. If you do that, that'll be an exceptional experience, and I'm excited for it. See if you can make sure you get it in that theater, man. All right, Darth Suthius writes, your denim shirts lined up like rainbows in closet. No, I've got about 5 or 6 denim long sleeve shirts, some black, some very light blue, some dark blue, whatever. I like my denim shirt, but I've also got a whole bunch of just regular dress button-up shirts that I don't wear on here very often, but I wear them once in a while, stuff like that. But no, I've only got about 5 or 6. Rodney Alexander. Hey, John. Hey, Rodney. Thanks for saying hey. O+98 writes, report saying Reeves' Batman delayed again. Thoughts? Well, technically speaking, since it never had an official start date, is it really delayed? I mean, that's something we can say. And look, and honestly, at this point, I'm at a I'll believe it when I see it kind of mentality. It's been years since they announced Matt Reeves was directing a Batman movie. Years. And we still don't even have word that they've completed a script. They've got a completed draft, but I haven't even heard that they've 100% completed the script yet. Years. Now, I'm not saying it should take an afternoon to write a script, but Joss Whedon, they infamously wrote the script for Cabin in the Woods in one weekend. They wrote that whole script in one weekend. Now, that's not to say that that's the norm, not at all, but if you can't write a script in a couple of years, then how much of an idea did you even have in the first place? I don't know. I'm getting carried away, but I'll just kind of believe it when I see it. Look, the movie's going to happen at some point, but I am getting close to having that I'll believe it when I see it sort of mentality when it comes to it. Director 5 writes, going to see Endgame for the first time, 10 a.m. sharp. Good on you. I hope you have a marvelous time, Director 5. All right. Darth Suthius writes, I know nothing of Shang-Chi, but I'm happy for there being an Asian MCU character having their own movie directed by a fellow Asian. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm super excited. And you know what? I remember Robert. He was right with me when we first read the news, and he just lit up like a Christmas tree. I don't know a ton about Shang-Chi either. Like, I've read a couple things with him in it, but that's about it. Robert knows a bunch about him. And again, he just lit up like a Christmas tree when he read them. I'm excited to see it. It's nice again seeing the MCU becoming more inclusive, stuff like that. We've now had 22 MCU films. None of them have had an Asian lead character, and we're going to get one. So I think that's pretty cool. And hopefully the most important thing, the movie turns out to be great like most of the other MCU stuff, and let's see how it all works out. All right, Adam Paul Stone writes, Did you ever watch the reality show Did you ever watch the reality? You probably mean watch. Did you ever watch the reality show of Spielberg's The Lot in the early 2000s? You know what? I never did. Even though Spielberg's my all-time favorite filmmaker, I never did see that show. Desmond Slater writes, Hey, John, new fan. Thank you so much, Desmond, for being here. Sorry about my spoilery question the other day. I want to know what you think of Silver Lining Playbook, one of my favorite movies. It's not one of my favorite, but it's a damn good film. It's a damn good film. Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence. She almost didn't get the role either. She almost didn't get that role. But anyway, Robert De Niro's really sharp in it. It's a really damn good movie. I enjoy it quite a bit, as a matter of fact. Mark Buddha writes, watched Mystery Men, hilarious. I'm glad to be a Mystery Men evangelist, spreading the good news of Mystery Men. Because it is still crazy how many people have not watched Mystery Men. I love it. I love Mystery Men, and I'm so glad you watched it, Mark. Good on you, sir, and thanks for letting me know. David Tapia writes, excited for El Chicano and Shadow this weekend. You know, it's funny. I got an invitation to go to a private screening of El Chicano, but I already had plans that night, and I couldn't go, and I was really interested in it. And I have not had a chance to see it yet, but I want to try to get and see it because it looks pretty cool to me. Darth Suthius writes, I'm seeing you have less difficulty reading questions, so a big shout out to fellow viewers for proofreading or the taking time typing everything out, or the taking of time typing everything out. Yes, as a matter of fact, I've noticed that, Darth, that over the past couple months, people writing in super chats, it's been getting better. It's becoming a little bit easier to read. It's still every once in a while I have to go, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. That still happens every once in a while, but nowhere near as much as it used to. So you're right, Darth Tip of the cap to everybody who's putting a little bit more time and thought into how they're writing things out so it doesn't strand me. Okay, Josh99 writes, does Avengers crack your top 50 movies ever? Like the original Avengers movie? Yeah, it's my all-time favorite comic book movie. I'd say it may be in my top 10. It's my number one all-time favorite comic book movie. It's probably in my top 10 favorite movies ever. Timothy Plott writes, Sonic trailer should have used Tom Sawyer by Rush. That actually, well, first of all, Timothy, let's just agree. Add Rush to anything, and that thing gets better. Just add a little bit of Getty, and that thing becomes better. Let's just agree on that. Insane Murdog writes, good Canadian band, by the way. One of the Regals near me has a large space between the screen and the first row. So even the first row seats are not bad. Why can't movie theaters do this? Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the more popular movie theaters in Los Angeles is the ArcLight in Hollywood. And they have these really big theaters, and they also have a big space between where the screen is and where the front row seats are. So even if you end up in the front row, it's not ideal, but it's actually not bad. It's not too bad. There's a couple reasons more movie theaters don't do this. Number one, square footage. I mean, you're paying for square footage. You just are. And to use up a lot of empty square footage is expensive. It really is. Number two, you want to use up, like, people aren't paying for empty space on the floor. They'll pay for seats. So you want to have seats in there. So that's why more theaters don't do it. And I get it. I do understand. But I still think they got to make sure that there's not a bad seat in the house. I think a movie theater has to make sure there's not a bad seat in the house. It's okay that some might not be as good as others. But you want to make sure there's not a bad seat. Because I've been to a couple movie theaters where front row means you're never going to understand what's going on in the movie. Because you're like, and it's just unwatchable, right? So I think there's a happy medium. They don't all have to be like the ArcLight, but you got to make sure they're not terrible seats at the same time. So I think there's a happy medium. Bunyan Snipe writes, Luke Hemsworth as Ben Grimm. Sure, I guess. Opium versus RNG writes, do you think we'll get a Thor 4 after Guardians 3? Well, if the report out of the Hollywood Reporter is to be believed, and Chris Hemsworth, according to the Hollywood Reporter, has signed a new deal that extends beyond Infinity War and Endgame into the next phase of MCU movies, then yeah, I really do. As a matter of fact, I totally believe Taika Waititi's probably already working on a Thor 4. So I think he'll probably show up in Guardians 3 first, and then we'll see him in Thor 4. So I do believe that will happen. I've got no insider information. I'm not claiming to know this is fact. Just as a fan speculating, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't get a Thor 4. Daryl Gann writes, any hope Disney Plus resurrects Agent Carter? Love Atwell. I really like that show, but the second season was a drop-off. The second season was a drop-off in quality. I thought the first season was great. I don't know. I mean, with all the potential properties they have, I don't know if going back to do Agent Carter would be one of them. But never say never, Daryl. Hold out hope. It's certainly a possibility. Again, I wouldn't think it's likely, but let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe it could. Andrew Nahario writes, which two Infinity Stones make the best combo to use? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if you can use them in combinations other than when they're all together in the Infinity Gauntlet. So I really don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask, man. Speedfire writes, Pikachu after reading reviews, I feel some critics didn't see the movie with an open mind. Dude, that's a terrible thing to say. Anyway, just because they didn't say what you wanted them to say doesn't mean they didn't see it with an open mind. Fair if they didn't like, but at least keep open mind. Speed, that's the thing. What you just did is something that I sometimes do, is something all film fans sometimes do, and we've got to stop. We've all got to stop, which is making excuses for why other people don't think the same way we do. All right? You didn't like a movie I love? Well, then you're just biased. Okay, so you're making up an excuse. You liked a movie I hated? Well, you're just a fanboy of that thing then. So you're making up excuses as to why. You know what? Just go, oh, they saw it and they didn't like it. Fair enough. This whole thing about they didn't see the movie with an open mind, I'm just going to be frank with you, brother. That's making an excuse. They saw it, they didn't like it. Don't start throwing out excuses. Oh, they didn't like it? Well, they just didn't have an open mind. No, they go in, they want... Believe me, every film critic wants to like every movie they see. Nobody wants to go into a movie and have to sit there for 2 hours for a movie you don't like. Everybody wants to like the movies they go in to see. You do, I do, we all do, right? We want to like what have to sit through for 2 hours. Film critics go into something with a complete open mind. It either works for them or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, they say it doesn't. And then those of us who wanted them to like it go, you're being paid off by the competition, or you didn't go into it with an open mind. No, they did. They went in with an open mind, and it didn't work for them. That's all there is to it. So yeah, just accept that, Speedfire, and leave it at that. And by the way, the critic rating, last I checked on Pikachu, was hovering around 70%, which is pretty damn good. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right, Tall Dude 3231 writes, hey John, Dad's 55th birthday, taking him to see Endgame at AMC Dolby recliner seats. Very nice experience. This has been our tradition, you probably meant our tradition, since the first Avengers film. I get my love for movies from him, and his favorite movie is Gladiator. I love Gladiator. Maximus. That movie's fantastic, and I can relate with you, man, because I get my love for movies from my mom, and my love of movies all the way back since I first saw Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. That is a great tradition. That's a good place to go see it. That's a great theater to go see it in, man. And that's just awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tall Dude. That's really great. I hope you can do that for the rest of your lives. Thomas DeFilippo writes, where'd it go? There it is. Where's It Chapter 2 trailer? Getting worried here. Dude, the movie's still practically 4 months away. What? Oh my God, it's like 120 days till it comes out. Where's the trailer? Who cares? What's the point of having a trailer right now? Look, if we get to within 12 weeks, then maybe. If we get to under 12 weeks, maybe we start raising our eyebrow a little bit, but it's still plenty far away. I wouldn't worry about it at this point. Carlos Sosa writes, hey John, with the success of Endgame, both in the box office and film-wise, does Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker have to set higher expectations or not? Not at all. One has nothing to do with the other. That's like saying, John, since I had this fantastic bowl of ice cream at this restaurant last night, best bowl of ice cream I ever had, do you think Tom Brady needs to throw 7 touchdowns in his next football game? One has nothing to do with the other. Look, Marvel just needs to focus on making the best movies they can. Disney just needs to focus on making the best Marvel films they can. Disney also just needs to focus on making the best Star Wars movies they can. That's it. One has nothing to do with the other. Just like, DC doesn't have to do anything as a result of what Endgame did. I think there are some lessons to learn from the success of Endgame, but one doesn't affect the other. You just make the best movie you can. So no, honestly, Carlos, I don't think it does anything to Rise of Skywalker whatsoever. Dad298 writes, where do we go? There it is. What was fanfare and excitement surrounding Spider-Man 2002 like? What is that film's legacy? I was 4 at the time. Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man movie. Dude, for a lot of people, there are still some people that would consider Spider-Man 2 to maybe be the best comic book movie ever made. I know it was my number one for a little while. It's fantastic. I remember there was a decent amount of excitement. Maybe I'm not remembering right. That was a long time ago. But I remember there being a decent amount of excitement around it. Like, what was the opening weekend for that? I don't think it broke any records at the time. I could be wrong about that, but let me just double check here. Where did Spider-Man go? There's Spider-Man from 2002. Actually, had a really, for the time, for 2002, it had a $114 million opening weekend, which is that's crazy good. Went on to make $821 million worldwide. $821 million worldwide for a movie that was 17 years ago. What's its legacy? I don't know. It's funny because I don't hear a lot of people talking about, everybody pretty much acknowledges that first Spider-Man movie is pretty damn good, but you don't often hear people talking about it. When you're talking about Spider-Man movies, most people will talk about Spider-Man 2. Or they'll be talking negatively about Spider-Man 3 or The Amazing Spider-Man 2. that's that as well. But I don't really know. That's a really good question. I think that's a good topic for discussion sometime about what is the legacy of that first Spider-Man movie. That's a really good one. I'm going to have to think about that a bit. All right. Jared's Reviews writes, Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. Saw the Ted Bundy movie this weekend. The movie, I think, isn't very good. I'm hearing that from a lot of people. But Zach gives a great performance. I'm also hearing that from a lot of people. And shows that he can really act. Dude, I've been a big fan of Zac Efron for a long time, ever since I saw Me and Orson Welles. That was the movie that made me went, holy crap, so he's not just a Disney song and dance kid? Like, this dude can really act? And I've been super impressed with him ever since. Loved him in Greatest Showman as well. God, I loved him in Greatest Showman. He's fantastic. But yeah, I keep hearing that the Ted Bundy movie isn't so hot, so I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm still going to check it out myself at some point, but I'm a little bit disappointed to hear it. Then again, I kind of expected it once we heard that it got dumped on Netflix and wasn't getting a theatrical release like they originally tried. That was like, okay, that's a red flag. Anyway, New Ulysses writes, if John Wick 3 is good, could we consider it to be the best action movie trilogy ever? Or one of the best trilogies ever, depending on how good it is? No. I love the John Wick films, but Shakespeare, they are not, especially John Wick 2. And by the way, I got a big kick out of John Wick 2. I thought John Wick 2 was great, but it's take away the action, you're not left with too much. John Wick 1 was still pretty strong. I thought John Wick 1 was pretty strong, not Academy level or anything like that, but pretty strong even if you took out the action. What I would say is this. I would say it becomes maybe the trilogy with the best action out of any trilogy, but not necessarily the best action trilogy. Because when you're talking about the best action trilogy, you're not just talking about the action, you're talking about the overall quality of the films as well. John Wick is a film franchise I just love watching. But at the same time, I try to be realistic about what it is I see in them. And it's not the world's greatest narrative. It's not the greatest plot pacing. It's not the greatest but it's got great action and it's incredibly fun to watch and I love it. But would I consider it to be one of the great action film franchises? No, probably not, because I don't think they're strong enough in other areas other than the action. But when I go into the theater, I really don't care that much about it. Just give me my popcorn and soda and let me watch John Wick kill 1,000 fools. Then I'm totally good. Starkiller writes, how do you feel about MJ knowing he's Spider-Man already? Well, I mean, what does already mean? We're already in the second movie, so it's not like she found out in the first movie. So we're all the way into the second movie. For all we know, that could be near the end of the film, in which case that's really not that long. I mean, that's longer than you might think for her to find out. And by the way, it might be a little bit of a misdirect. Or, you know how that they showed that one scene in the first trailer where he goes, "You look really pretty," and she says, "And therefore I have value?" And he's like, no. She goes, I'm kidding. You look pretty too. This might be one of those things where if they played it a little bit longer, she goes, "You're Spider-Man." It's kind of obvious. And then maybe 1 second later, she goes, "I'm kidding," So it could be another one of those things, could be a big misdirect. But even if it is knowing, I wouldn't use the word already because it could be at the end of the second film. That's a pretty decent amount of time to wait. At least you didn't find out in the first film. All right. Kian Shingler writes, scenes to be considered of that caliber. The final act works by sacrificing plot in order to deliver the fantastical. That's true. If we're talking about Endgame, that's true. A very good act, but not exceptional. If the plot holes weren't so obvious, maybe. Well, I mean, again, if you're going back to what, if I'm thinking about the question that we answered on the show earlier today about, when I said if the first two acts were as good as the third act, what I meant to say was not just carbon copies of the third act, but if what the first act and second act were supposed to do, if they delivered on the same level that the third act did to me, not only is Endgame probably my favorite comic book movie of all time, it might be one of the all-time greatest films ever made. But it's not my favorite comic book film of all time. It is my fifth favorite MCU film, ahead of a lot of great MCU films, but I have it in my number 5 spot. I'm not quite sure where it sits in probably in my number 8, maybe my number 8 all-time comic book film. Well, it was where I would have Endgame. But at any rate, yeah, that's just kind of how I see it, though. Okay, Mr. Hero 17 writes, multiverse confirmed in MCU, Secret Wars maybe. First of all, multiverse is not confirmed in the MCU. Just because we had a villain say something while fooling the heroes into thinking he's a hero doesn't necessarily mean it's true, so keep that in mind. Also, this whole multiverse thing, even if it's real, I got a feeling they're going to close the loop on that pretty quick. They realized they had to do it in the comic books. I am very nervous about how stupid things could get if they do that in the movies. It takes out any consequences for anything because, oh no, my favorite person died. No worries. There's 75 other versions of that exact same character in all the other multiverses. They can just pull one in and they're back. Yay! Right? I hate that. So I would say, number one, it's not confirmed. Secret Wars, I believe I heard one of the MCU guys say they're not looking at Secret Wars, but that could be true or not true. So I don't know. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. It's a possibility. Joser Maez writes, why video game film fail at box office? Well, I mean, that's a 2-hour long discussion. My basic, although I'm just giving you the basic cold note here, there's a lot of asterisks and ifs, ands, or buts, but basically to me is, I think too often they try to make video game movies like the video games, and video games are not designed to be narrative visual storytelling. They're meant to be gameplay. And that's why they've often failed. But there are tons of exceptions to that as well. And again, it's too much to go into right now, but that's my general basic thought on it. Terrell Wise writes, what Avenger do you think will cameo in Far From Home? Honestly, I don't think any. I don't think any. Unless you count, Nick Fury as an Avenger or something like that. But honestly, I don't think we're going to see any of them show up. Could be wrong about that. I hope I'm wrong about that. But my just guess right now is that none. Christian Borges writes, I'm seeing a ton of people online talking about how Far From Home is introducing the multiverse into the MCU. Have these people forgotten about Doctor Strange? Yeah, I mean, that's true too. Is like, I'm seeing people, oh, now they have the multiverse. It's like, well, technically speaking, with tons of multiple realities and stuff like that, that's stuff Doctor Strange has been doing and talking about for a couple of films now. Also, if anything else, you would have to say Endgame is the one that introduced it, if it's there. So I'm with you, Christian. I made the same observation as you, brother, and I completely agree with you. All right, Ike Moore writes, I think Peter's going to have PTSD similar to what Tony had in Iron Man 3, which is why he doesn't want to be Spider-Man during his trip. I don't know. I think that's reading a lot into it. I kind of took it like from the first trailer. What I gathered in the first trailer was just that literally he just wants to go on vacation with his friends. I mean, they just had this world-changing event, and he just wants to go vacate. I don't know if that's going to be PTSD or not. It might be a little weird replaying that whole thing, but hey, it's possible. It's possible. It'd be an interesting callback to Iron Man 3 if they did. Dom Velela writes, Qyburn, my master Cersei bids thee welcome. That's one of the best. I think that was from the extended version of Return of the King. When the mouth of Sauron comes out, my master bids thee welcome. I don't know why. I just love that. I thought that was great. So that's a really good observation, Dom. Equating that to Game of Thrones. PJ Barnes writes, with Amy Pascal moving to Universal, any chance she could work something out with Disney for a Hulk movie? No. Because look, the situation is what it is, and it's not going to change. Universal has the rights to distribute anything Hulk related that Marvel makes. Marvel has the rights to make anything Hulk related that they want, except that if they make something Hulk related, Universal gets the distribution rights. Disney doesn't want other people distributing their stuff. They want to distribute their own stuff. And so they've only made Hulk a secondary character in some other films. That's where it's at. The only thing that changes, that can change, is if Universal gives up the rights to distribute the Hulk. But why? You would have to be an idiot. You would have to be a world-class idiot. If you were Universal and you had those distribution rights, you'd have to be stupid to give them up. Just sit on them and say, okay, Marvel, we can play this waiting game too. If you just want to wait and wait and wait, we can wait too because it's not costing us anything. I would sit on those till the sun goes down. No doubt about it. And if Marvel wants them back, they can pay for it and pay big for it. And if they don't want to pay big, then they can just not make any Hulk material. And I'll just happily, because it's free, it's not costing me anything. If I'm Universal, it's not costing me a pretty penny to just sit on those rights. And I'll just sit on them. And so really, there's nothing that Amy Pascal can do about that. There's nothing they can do. Unless she wants to broker a deal between Disney, to finally convince Disney, go ahead and make a movie and let Universal distribute, much like you make Spider-Man and Sony distributes, although Sony's the one that's holding all the cards there. But that's the only thing that can happen. But Disney has said, we're not going to make a movie if Universal gets to distribute it. And Universal said, well, we're not giving up the distribution rights. So we're at this total stalemate. And unfortunately, I don't see how an Amy Pascal or anybody is going to change that, which is a really sad state of affairs. Honestly, I wish Disney would just cave and say, fine, we're going to make a Hulk movie and you can distribute. Like, I really wish they would just do that, but it doesn't look like they're going to do it. And I get where they're coming from too. I do. I understand Disney's position as well. The new Ulysses writes, which would you rather have, a reboot if you had to choose, and which one do you think is most likely? True Lies, The Matrix, or Lethal Weapon? I'll tell you what, I'll do The Matrix. Why? Because as great as Keanu Reeves is in that, remember, he wasn't even supposed to be in it. I believe Will Smith was originally cast to be Neo. I believe it was Will Smith that was supposed to be Neo originally. So it's not like that role was crafted for him or created for him or anything like that, right? And while he's great in it, Keanu Reeves is great as Neo. I could see somebody else playing the role. True Lies, that was built around Arnold Schwarzenegger in that role, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Arnold and stuff like that. And same with Lethal Weapon. So I would say the one that is the one I would choose, and maybe the one that would be most likely, although I don't think any of them really will. Well, Lethal Weapon has already been rebooted on TV, but I would say Matrix. I'd go The Matrix. New Ulysses also writes, I meant to put sequel, not reboot. Oh, if you had to choose, oh, that totally changes it. If you had to choose a sequel, oh, True Lies. I don't think any of them are likely to happen. I don't think any of them are going to happen, but I would take True Lies in a heartbeat. It's my all-time favorite action film. So I would take True Lies in a heartbeat. Ben Ellman writes, got to see Batman 1989 in theaters for the first time this weekend. So cool getting to see a favorite on the big screen. The theater is an experience. I completely agree. It's always awesome. I remember when I got to go watch Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen, to see one of these movies, these iconic films, the way the movies were meant to be watched on a big screen in a theater and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing like it, man. And I'm thrilled you had that experience. And yeah, you know, it reminds me of the first time I went to go see Batman. I was a kid. It was in Hamilton, Ontario at the Jackson Square Mall. Me and my buddy Brendan, who passed away a couple of years ago, we went down and watched it there. And one of my favorite memories. So thanks for bringing that up, Ben. I appreciate that. Orange Hand writes, Marvel has to know fans expect Mysterio to be a villain. So I'd like to see him remain an ally, or they find some other way to subvert our expectations. Dude, that would actually be really, really fun. That would be great if they did that. Imagine that. Like, because even I see the trailers like, well, clearly Mysterio is fooling them. He's fooling them. He's a bad guy. He's fooling them. He was probably Spider-Man's arch nemesis in whatever alternate reality he came from. And now he's here pretending to be a good guy, right? So he's bad. He's just fooling them. But what if he actually is a good guy here and they're totally subverting our expectations? That would be ballsy, man. I'd be down for it. That would be totally ballsy if they did it, and I would be down for it. All right, Nick writes, currently the MCU is at a $947 million average. If Endgame and Far From Home don't put the MCU up to $1 billion per film average, what will, if ever? Love your videos, John. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, all they have to do is keep making movies that make a little over $1 billion. If you keep making movies that are a little over $1 billion, eventually your average will get back to $1 billion. Or you get one or two more that come out that make $2 to $3 billion. And that'll do it too. So then again, you can have an Ant-Man and the Wasp come out that makes a huge amount, like $650 million, but is well under $1 billion, and that can throw the average back off again. But all they got to do is continue to put out movies that make $1 billion or more, and they'll eventually get to that average. Tina Hesse writes, hello, finally saw Endgame last night. Loved it. I'm glad you had a chance to get out and see it, Tina. I'm glad you had a good time watching it. And I hope you had a chance to share the experience with friends or family or whatever, a special somebody, and share that experience because it is an experience of a film. And I'm glad you had a good time, Tina. All right, Jack121 writes, is it just me, or do the costumes look much better in Far From Home? CGI doesn't stand out as much. Also, shocking how much it leans on events of Endgame. I don't know that it leans on the events of Endgame. I mean, it makes clear this happens after the events. I mean, the world has been shook, right? The world has been shook. Half the population disappeared, and then they just came back. The world has gone through and is in the midst of going through this tectonic shift in the history of the planet. Not to mention now you suddenly have a planet that had been at one population for 5 years and now all of a sudden has twice the population. So that's a big thing too. So for there to be reference on that as the background of what's going on with Peter and the story, I don't think that means it relies or leans on Endgame too much. It's just saying, it's just acknowledging this is the post-Endgame world, right? This is the post-Endgame world. Now, as far as the CGI, I didn't notice that it looked any worse or any better than the other stuff I've seen before. I mean, the Iron Spider outfit still bothers me, but whatever, who cares? I still love Spider-Man. But I didn't really know. Maybe if I watch it a few more times, I'll notice that too, Jack. I'll take a look at it. I want to watch, he writes, keep up the great work. Thank you so much, man. It's always nice when somebody just wants to write in to say something nice. I appreciate that. Anthony R. writes, the craziness of Endgame is behind us. It's nice to breathe a sigh of relief. Don't have to worry about big movies crashing sites, except for episode 9. Man, I don't know. I think, episode 9 is going to be $1 billion film. But I don't know that it's going to be a site crashing kind of phenomena like The Force Awakens was, that Infinity War was, or that Endgame was. Now, maybe it will be. Maybe. But I don't see right now. Now, granted, all we've had is that first little teaser trailer. That's all we've had so far. So right now, I don't see Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, being a $2 billion film, right? Like The Force Awakens was. But it's going to be huge. It's going to easily cross the billion. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. I don't know that I see it hitting too like The Force Awakens did. I just don't. Now, that may change as we see more marketing come out. We start to get a better sense of how people are reacting to it. All that may change. So just for now, I'm saying I'm not expecting it to see it to crash websites like the other films did. All right, Alex Alexander writes, when I was watching the trailer and I wonder if John will like it, I mean, it has all the things he doesn't like. Iron Spider, multiverse, we need the next Iron Man line from Peter, but I don't know, did you like it? I did like it. Now, does the Iron Man Jr. Iron Spider suit bother me? Yes, that does bother me. I do not like multiverse. That's true, I don't like multiverse. And I didn't take, we need the next Iron Man. He was talking about a world's defender. He wasn't talking about, I literally need to become Iron Man for Tony Stark. I didn't interpret it that way. But yeah, I don't like the Iron Spider outfit. It just makes him Iron Man Jr. And I'm not a fan of multiverse because to me that's lazy writing. Because I can't come up with really creative stuff within our world. So let's just say we have a multiverse and I can do anything. To me, that's lazy. That and time travel to me are lazy. Doesn't mean there's not examples of it working fantastic. There are examples of it working fantastic. I'm just saying for the most part, I find it to be lazy devices. But even though I don't like the Iron Spider suit, the little Iron Man Jr. suit, I still can love Spider-Man in the scenes he's in. Yeah, that bothers me that he's wearing an Iron Man Jr. suit, but whatever. I get past that. It's not a big deal. I don't like the multiverse stuff, but hey, make a good movie, make a good story surrounding it, and I'll put it aside. Doesn't mean I like that thing, but I can put it aside. It's like, what's a good example here? I don't like sushi, right? But you can give me something if it's got a little bit of, let me rephrase. I'm not a big fish fan, okay? Not a big fish fan. I'll have fish and chips and I'll have, shrimp with my Chinese food, but for the most part, I don't like seafood. But if there's a really good dish I enjoy and it's got some seafood in it, whatever. I don't like seafood, but I love this dish, I don't like multiverse stuff. I don't like this little Spider-Man or Iron Man Jr. suit, but you know what? The trailer's great. So I don't like those things, but whatever. The overall thing works for me, so thumbs up from me. So that's kind of how I felt about it, Alex. Anyway, Robert Johnson writes, if they are going to introduce a Spider-Verse, it will be a wasted opportunity if they don't bring back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Oh no, that's a terrible idea. That's a Saturday Night Live sketch. That's my opinion, Robert. Not to put down your opinion. I mean, you feel that way. We all have different thoughts and opinions on this stuff. And if that's your thought, good on you. But I'll be honest with you. If you're asking me my opinion, to me, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all. That to me sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit. More than anything else. So no, I would not bring those back. And I don't know that they're going to be doing multi-Spider-Verse anyway. And something I said on the John Campea Show earlier today. There's two different ways of looking at multiverse. One is the Endgame way. Two is the Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse way. The Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse way is 10,000 times better. 10,000 times better. Here's why. Because Into the Spider-Verse, they propose there's a bunch of multiverses, right? But in Into the Spider-Verse, each of those multiverses were completely different from the other, right? In one, Miles Morales is Spider-Man. In another, a totally different person, this guy named Peter Parker, is Spider-Man. In another, it's a pig animal universe where you've got Peter Porker, the amazing Spider-Ham, is the Spider-Man character. In another, it's a few hundred years in the future, and you got Penny Parker, who is Spider-Man with her robot and her radioactive robotic spider, whatever that is. In another, it's a 1930s whatever Spider-Man noir. You know, it's every reality is a completely different thing, a completely unique and different thing. That is far superior to me and far more creative than, say, something like Endgame, where every time and different reality that they went to was 100% to the split second exactly the same as the reality they came from. That, to me, is not interesting. And it makes it a cop-out. It fills it with plot holes, in my opinion, and all this kind of stuff. But, I mean, there's some ways of doing it great, some ways of not doing it so great. But that's just my thought on that. Robert Johnson writes, can Sony use this to pull Tom Holland out of the MCU? Sony doesn't need anything to pull Tom Holland out of the MCU. Sony can just go, okay, we did Spider-Man Far From Home. Okay, done. Now we're going to do a new Spider-Man. We're taking Spider-Man back. We're going to put him in our own universe, and there we go. That's all they have to do. They don't need a narrative excuse to do it. That's kind of the power position they're in right now, Robert, is that they can just do that. So they don't need to do anything like that. I want to watch, he writes, your favorite movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. I love to watch his films since Donnie Darko. If you're asking me my favorite movie with him in it, it would probably have to be Nightcrawler. Donnie Darko's great, but I love Nightcrawler. That movie's so fun and entertaining and creepy and morbid and all the stuff all rolled into one. It's amazing. But it's not my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal performance. My favorite Jake Gyllenhaal performance is probably, and I don't think he got an Academy Award nomination for this. I might be wrong, but I don't think he did, but was in Prisoners that he did with Hugh Jackman. And I believe Denis Villeneuve directed that with them. His performance in that is so great. So great. I think it's better than his performance in Brokeback or anything else that he's done. But my overall favorite movie with him in it is probably Nightcrawler. Let's see. Dirk Walker writes, my philosophy now is if it works in the comics, it can work in the movies. Ooh, I disagree. I'd have sworn Doctor Strange and Thanos wouldn't work live action before seeing Marvel pull it off. Bring on the multiverse. Ooh, Doctor Strange, I think a lot of us always thought it would be cool. I mean, it would be psychedelic and weird, but it'd be totally cool to see Doctor Strange in there. You can totally do Doctor Strange. Thanos is a very different Thanos than he is in the comic books. Look, you can take anything from the comic books and massively change it and bring it to the big screen. You can take anything from the comics. If you're open to massively changing it and bring it to the big screen, you can do that. But just, this thing's in the comic, just put it on the movie and it'll work. Not so much. I don't agree with that at all. Not in the least. And that's why I think there's a lot of stuff in comics. You'll never see them, you never have seen, and you never will see them try to bring to the movies, because different mediums are different things. Just because it works on a printed page does not mean it'll work in a live action movie at all. But the stuff like Doctor Strange, I think it was all just a matter of having the right vision to pull it off. You could do it. Thanos, again, is a very different Thanos than he is in the comic books. Thanos copter, anybody? Like, really, do you think the Thanos copter would work? Do you really think the Thanos copter that's in the comic books can be brought into the movies and have it work? Probably not. You could massively change it to his big mothership and say, that's his version of the Thanos copter, and fine, you can do that, but you'd have to make major revision. If you're accepting major revision, then yeah, anything in a comic book can work in a movie. You just have to be ready to accept major revision. That's my thought at any rate. Doesn't mean I'm right. That's my thought. Ethan's Tech World writes, pick one, reserve seating or A-list. Love the show. Thank you so much, Ethan. And look, I've said for a long time, A-list is the best thing to ever happen to film fans, but I'll tell you what, in a heartbeat, it's reserve seating. I can live without A-list. I cannot live without reserve seating again. I cannot go back to the dark ages. That is just, it's just such a Neanderthalic way of approaching things. It's idiotic. It's stupid. It's asinine. It's outdated. It's just the dark ages. You cannot go without reserve seating anymore. So I would take reserve seating over A-list. Fortunately, though, we live in an era where we get to have both. AB Loves Movie writes, is July going to be the biggest month in the movies this year? No, that'll be April, because April's the movie of Endgame. So that's probably going to definitively say that. But Spidey, Simba, that's Lion King. Stuber does look pretty good. Tarantino, I need more weekend in July to catch up to them all. Well, I mean, if you're saying biggest, but not in terms of box office, maybe. I mean, I cannot wait to watch Lion King. I cannot wait to see Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm now getting excited about Stuber. It's Quentin Tarantino, so of course we're all excited about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it's going to be, it's a highly anticipated month. But look, May, you know, we got Detective Pikachu coming out. We got John Wick Chapter 3. There's a bunch of really good ones coming out in May too. But yeah, July's pretty big. But the biggest box office month of the year is still going to be April, because that's all of Endgame's box office counts as an April box office. Even though it's making money now in May, it all counts as April. That's going to be the biggest box office, even though it's just the one big, huge film. That's going to be the biggest box office thing of the year, I believe. Who knows? Maybe we'll get surprised. All right. Gisberto Guzzo writes, rewatched Blowout yesterday. So good. I think Blowout. Oh, De Palma and Travolta. Oh, that's the one with Jonathan Lithgow in it too. Oh my God. Anyway, I think it's De Palma's and Travolta's best work respectively. Okay, first of all, that movie, God, I probably saw that movie long after it was in theaters. I think I saw it like mid 80s or something when I was a teenager, but so it's the basic idea, if I remember correctly about it, is like this guy played by John Travolta. He he works in television or movies or something like that, and he's a sound engineer, right? So he records sounds to use in TV and movies, if I'm remembering it right. And he accidentally catches an audio recording of a murder. See, it was supposed to look like these guys were murdering this woman. They tried to make it look like her tire blew out and her car went off a ditch and into the river and she died. But his audio recording caught a gunshot sound right before the tire blew, proving that somebody shot out her tire, and thus it was a murder. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I'll say this. I don't ever remember thinking to myself that I thought it was a great movie. I think I remember liking it though. But my God, that's a long time since I've seen that film. I think, you know what, Gisberto? I think you get an honor here. I think you were the first person ever in the history of the John Campea Show to bring out Blowout. I think you're the first person to ever do it, so congrats to you, man. All right, Anthony R. writes, I'm not crazy about EA, but I purchased Battlefront 2 because it was $7.49 on the PlayStation Store. Had fun wrecking fools as Darth Maul in the arcade mode. And you know what? Hey, look, I play a little bit of Star Wars Battlefront 2. I mostly play arcade mode too. I actually... Well, not exclusive. I play a little bit of multiplayer, but most of the time I just play arcade mode. I just have fun doing it that way. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I kind of dig myself. I'm glad you, for $7.50, how can you go wrong, Anthony? So I'm glad you found that and picked that up. Shelly Belly writes, I've become such a theater snob. I refuse to go to anything but a Dolby Cinema. It's the best movie experience, better than IMAX. Thanks for the show. Love what you and the crew do. Well, thank you so much, Shelly. And I'll tell you what, too. I've also become a little bit of a theater snob, especially with my A-list and having prime theaters in my local theater, because it's like really, if I want to go see that movie, it has to be in one of the regular theaters. Fine. I'm totally with you. I've totally become a theater snob. Never wanted to, never intended to, but I have become a total theater snob thanks to those Dolby theaters and the AMC primes. Totally am. Like, I always try to make sure I wait till see it in the prime, and if not, then I kind of whine about it a little bit. So that's just me. All right, Gisberto continues on. He writes, did you know that it was John Lennon who stopped Phil Spector from seeking an injunction on Mean Streets for the unauthorized use of Be My Baby? Yeah, that was the opening song, I believe, from the movie. A deal was made that allowed for the movie to stay in theaters on the condition that Spector's music be featured in future Scorsese projects. I knew that there was a big problem that Spector was like, I believe, if I remember right, he didn't give consent for them to use that in Mean Streets. And he was like, wait, what is this? I did not know about there being then a behind the scenes deal for Spector's music to be featured in Scorsese projects. Maybe that's a well-known thing, Gisberto, but I didn't know about that. See, that's why I love doing this show. I learn new things all the time. That's really interesting to know. Thanks for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. All right. Bames John writes, the Ancient One mentioned the multiverse in Doctor Strange. Is it really here now, or is it just Beck playing games? Either way, this movie looks awesome. Well, you know what? Rob brought up a great point on the John Campea Show earlier today, saying, hey man, Mysterio could just be lying. He could just totally be pulling their leg about all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you know what? That's true. So I don't know. I think it's real. I'm leaning towards that it's real, James, or Bames, I should say, Mr. John. But I think we've got to hold on to that. There is a possibility that's all just a fake out. It could just be a big fake out, and you might be right about that. So let's keep our eyes on that as we go into the film. Personally, though, I lean towards that it's probably a real thing. Curtis Lopez writes, did you see a Starbucks coffee cup was left in the frame on Game of Thrones last night? Yeah, we talked about that on the John Campea Show earlier today. For those who didn't see it, in the most recent episode of Game of Thrones, Dany is sitting at a table during a celebration, and there's very clearly a Starbucks coffee cup sitting on the table right in front of her. Like, you can't miss it. Hilarious. It's just crazy how one of those things got missed. I thought that was fun, but we talked about that this morning. Curtison follows up with, I hope they don't play this new Far From Home trailer in front of showings of Endgame. I got a feeling they won't. At least not this week. Maybe in another week or two. They might, but I got a feeling they won't this week. I mean, it'd be fun. Do me a favor, guys. Report back. Let me know if indeed you go to an Avengers Endgame screening and if they play this new Far From Home trailer in front. I'd be curious to know if they do. I don't think they would, but maybe they would. Just get back to me and let me know what happens. Holy Jeebas writes, kiss, kiss, gangbang, John. I bet Dany likes her coffee the way she likes her men. Tall, dark, and extra thick. Yeah, the coffee joke. Very funny. For those of you who don't know, I accidentally once, when talking about the great Shane Black movie, Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang, I accidentally said kiss, kiss, gangbang. And in true John Campea viewer fashion, the viewers have never let me live that down, and they continue to throw it up. Kiss, kiss, gangbang. Yep, it was just a slip of the tongue, but it is pretty funny. Santaz Henderson writes, people keep saying Dany has always been a jerk, but her mean streak didn't kick in until she got closer to the throne. Eagerness is what will get her killed. Oh, I don't disagree with you, Santaz. I don't think she's always been a jerk. I think she's been a total jerk for the last couple of years, and I don't trust her. And I think this last episode, she's really letting her true motives and her true colors show. She's been trying to say, I'm just about breaking chains and changing the world. Nah, she just wants the throne. And that's becoming more and more apparent. Like when she finds out that John is the rightful heir to the throne, at least according to their family line, and she knows he's a good man and a great leader and a good-hearted person, and he would be great king. That's not what she's worried about. That throne's mine. That's what it's all about for her. She's a jerk. But I totally agree with you. Did not start. Look, that character has gone through a lot of heartache, a lot of suffering, a lot of loss, a lot of sacrifice. And that's going to take its toll on people. And it's clearly taking its toll on this character. But yep, she's a jerk. But no, she hasn't always been one. The Hero writes, wait, where'd we go here? Oh, there we go. The Hero writes, hey guys, with the Fox Disney people are assuming the X-Men or Fantastic Four will be brought in as a whole. If you could pick just one from their roster, who? Well, I mean, if you could only pick one person of the Fantastic Four or the X-Men roster to bring over, the clear, obvious business choice is Wolverine. That's your most popular character. Now, we already know it's not going to be Deadpool. They're keeping Deadpool separate. They're keeping Deadpool out of the MCU. Deadpool's going to be a Fox thing, not a Marvel thing. So we know that. But clearly, to me, it's your bread and butter. It's Wolverine. Now you just got to make sure you cast a good Wolverine after Hugh Jackman has wrapped it up. So we'll have to see how that one goes. All right, Daz Che writes, John, you sound like a big Game of Thrones fan from your review. Well, what I've been saying is, look, I'm not the world's biggest Game of Thrones fan. I'm really enjoying the show right now, but real hardcore Game of Thrones fans have read all the books. They've rewatched every season like 4 or 5 times. They could trace the family lineages for you and all that kind of stuff. That's not me. I just watch an episode and I enjoy watching the episode. And I got to tell you, I've been really enjoying it. But when I say I'm not the world's biggest Game of Thrones fan, what I really mean is like, I'm not like a lot of the hardcore fans. I don't read the books. I don't follow the lineages. I don't know all the histories and stuff like that. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I'm just a casual fan who casually pops on the episode, watches it, and has a really good time and really enjoys it. And I have been. I've been really enjoying the show. But thanks for pointing that out, Daz. All right. Jordan Huxtable writes, with the multiverse now being a thing, they'll bring in Tom Hardy's Venom at some point? Nah. Would love to see it myself. Kevin Feige can now bring in X-Men and Fantastic Four easily. Not really. Remember, see, a lot of people keep thinking, oh, this is how they're bringing in X-Men. Remember, this whole multiverse thing, I think it's going to be short-lived. I don't know that. I'm just guessing, so I don't know. But my guess, pure guess, is it's going to be short-lived. But remember, this whole thing was planned by Kevin Feige years ago, without X-Men or Fantastic Four, any of that in mind. He has done no planning for Fantastic Four, no planning for X-Men. I really don't think multiverse is going to be a thing for another 5 years, that when they eventually start bringing it. So I really don't think so. And no, I don't think this will have anything to do with Venom. I think Sony is building their own Sonyverse. I don't think Marvel wants to marry the MCU with what's going on in the Venom universe. So I don't think so, but you never know. Kevin Feige can pull some cards out of his sleeve, man. So you never know. So I'm not going to say never. No way. It's Kevin Feige. I'm guessing it has nothing to do with it, but we'll wait and see. All right. Elliot Acosta writes, hey, John, I finally popped my cherry here. Well, good on you. Good to have you here, Elliot. Do you think Amy could help Marvel out with the Hulk situation now since she's there, and a big fan of yours? Well, thank you so much, Elliot. And as I kind of answered the same question just a few minutes ago. I don't really see that there's anything she can do. They're in a stalemate. Universal and Disney are in a stalemate over this thing. Disney doesn't want to make a Hulk film if it means Universal gets to distribute. Universal is not about to give those rights up. So I don't really see what Amy Pascal can do other than try to convince Kevin Feige and Disney to just accept it. But even if she could convince Kevin Feige, I don't think Bob Iger is going to go for it, and that's the important thing. So I doubt it, man. It's unfortunate, but I doubt it. Kevin Dev Reactions writes, Multiverse, Spideyverse, excited for the future of the MCU. I think it's a terrible idea. I'll be honest with you, it's a terrible idea, and I think it's going to be short-lived because I don't think that's going to work with the average movie-going audience, and they did it in the comics before, and that's why they had all those big events to just bring it back to one universe again, because it gets really convoluted, and I think Kevin Feige knows that, so I think it's going to be a short-lived thing. I could be wrong, though. I mean, this could be the infinite future of the MCU. We'll find out. Maybe they'll do a great job with it. Alan Gonzalez writes, how about Thor? In another world, Captain Marvel unavailable. Multiverse will bring Cap and Tony back. Well, I don't know if it's going to be multiverse, but listen, I've said it a million times. We're going to see Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back. It may not be this year. It may not be in 2 years. It may not be in 3 years. It might not even be in 5 years. You're going to see Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back. In one form or another, you're going to see them back. Now, I don't know if it's going to be as a result of multiverse or something else, but we're going to see them back. We're going to have another conversation in 2025. And we will have had, or maybe 2026, whatever, we will have had Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans, and we're going to have Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., will have been back. They'll be back. I'm telling you, they'll be back. Tiburon writes, hey, John, do you have a new Stanley Cup favorite? Please keep my name and avatar in mind when you answer. Right now, I got to look at the Hurricanes. First of all, they knocked out in a great 7-game series the defending Stanley Cup champions in the Washington Capitals. Then they had to play a team that swept the previous Stanley Cup champions. The New York Islanders swept out the Pittsburgh Penguins to get to the next round, and the Hurricanes swept them out. So I got to tell you, man, they're looking real strong. Boston's looking good, but I think the Canes, man, are looking really good right now. Marcus Pena writes, do you think that the intro of the multiverse into Far From Home could allow Sony to use Tom Holland in Venom for a movie and keep him in the MCU Spider-Verse? I think if they want, look, first of all, if Disney and Sony wanted to do something like that, they wouldn't need the multiverse excuse to do it. If they wanted to have Spider-Man in a Venom film, they could find a way to do it, and it doesn't have to include multiverse. So therefore, just because multiverse is here now, and we don't even know if it really is here, and we don't know how long it's going to be here for, I don't think it changes things much. So I don't think we're going to see it. Look, I'm all for it, though. Let me go on record. I'm all for it. And anything is possible. I don't think that's what they're doing, but anything is possible, and I would be all for it. Angus Dustagear writes, hello, Game of Thrones question. Don't think we ever found out what actually happened to the shame woman Cersei was torturing. Reckon we may see her again? Two things. One, I thought we saw her die. I could be wrong about that, but I thought we saw her die. But number two, why would we see her again? What possible narrative function could she serve at this stage of the game? With 2 episodes left, what possible narrative function would that character play? So again, I don't know. I have no insider information, but I'm going to go on a limb and guess no. I don't think we're going to see her again. All right. Jetfire97 writes, how would one come back if you're snapped in an air crash? Ooh. So if everybody's just reappearing where they were when they're snapped, what if you were in, 5,000 feet in the air in a jetliner coming down for a landing, you're still 5,000 feet up? Do you just reappear? Do you reappear in that plane that is parked on a runway somewhere? Or do you reappear mid-air, 5,000 feet in the air, where you were when the snap happened? Ooh, that would suck. I don't know what the mechanics of the reappearing are, but that would really suck if you got dusted when you were sitting on an airplane and you reappear 5,000 feet up only to fall to your death. That would suck. Carton writes, thank you for what you do. You all are great. Thank you so much, L. Carton. That's always really nice when people just want to send in something and say something nice. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It makes my day a little bit better. All right. Garrett Couch writes, trailer contingent on seeing a previous movie only weeks before. Has that happened before? Well, I would say this. I don't think that trailer was at all I think that trailer works perfectly fine even if you haven't seen Endgame. The only thing you find out is that, I guess Tony Stark is dead. Okay. Really, there's nothing else there. So I disagree, Garrett. I don't see that this trailer was contingent upon seeing Endgame previously. Because seriously, go back and watch that trailer again. Pretend you never saw Endgame. Okay, you get a surprise finding out that Tony's dead. But other than that, does anything else in this trailer not work as a result of the fact that you hadn't seen Endgame? No, it probably still works. Whatever information you would have needed to know, they say in the trailer. So I actually think it still works. I don't think it was contingent on it at all. Yellow Does It writes, completely missed Hellboy. Ha, thanks, Endgame. Yeah, I mean, Hellboy, it is really too bad. I was very excited for Hellboy. And by the way, guys, it's going to get a little loud in here because I'm going to pop on my air conditioner just because it's getting kind of warm in the studio here. I am in Southern California right now, and I keep my AC off when I'm doing the show, but we've been going for about almost an hour and 20 minutes already, so it's starting to get warm in here with the lights and everything. So I apologize for the background noise, but hey, it is what it is. Okay. Anyway, back to the main point here. It is a shame. I was really excited about Hellboy. I know a lot of people were excited about Hellboy, and it just missed the mark. Terrible marketing, especially the first trailer they put out that just left everybody scratching their heads, not really knowing what this movie was going to be. And it's going to end up being one of the biggest flops of the year. It lost well over $80 million, which is huge for a company like Lionsgate. Lionsgate isn't Disney. They're not Comcast. They're not Universal. They can't just eat an $80 million loss. That's going to hurt them. And it's too bad because a lot of us were looking forward to Hellboy. It's a shame. RD Royal writes, is this how they bring X-Men into the MCU? No. Again, this was something they planned years ago, long before there was ever X-Men or Fantastic Four, so I don't think so. Anchor654 writes, love the Spider-Man trailer. The mention of the multiverse makes me think of a possible Ezra and Kanan situation in the world between worlds. That was a good episode. Peter having to choose to leave / say goodbye to Tony again. Cry. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, here's the thing. It's one of the reasons why I don't like multiverse in anything, because it's just lazy. And now you can do anything. You don't have to come up with creative or inventive ways to do it. You just say, multiverse, multiverse. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like it. But I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to have him see Tony again or anything. But oh my God, somebody asked a little bit earlier, could any Avenger pop up in this movie? Wouldn't it be a kick if Robert Downey Jr. made a cameo in this thing? As an alternate reality, an alternate timeline Tony seeing Peter again. Oh my God, talk about the feels. Talk about number one, surprising the audience, and number two, the feels. That would totally do it. I don't think that's what they're doing, but oh my God, that would be pretty cool. Sign me up if that's what if that's what they've got in mind. Daniel J writes, Does it matter if Endgame beats Avatar considering that Disney owns both IPs? The real way to ask that question is, does it really matter that Disney owns the IPs? That really has nothing to do with it. It's a significance thing. It's about, it tells us, look, box office tells us what is the audience attracted to right now? What are they responding to? What marketing ploys and techniques are being effective? It tells us a lot of stuff. See, some people say to me, John, why do you care about box office? Why do you care what millionaires' money people are making? It's not that. It's the information that box office tells us. What is the audience getting excited by? What is catching the audience's attention? What trends in movies are motivating audiences to get out to see the movie? See, it's all that information that we glean from box office that I think is interesting. That's why, regardless of who owns the IPs, that's why I think it's pretty fascinating seeing if a new movie becomes the #1 box office film of all time. I think that's fascinating. It tells us a lot of stuff. Alexander Wilson writes, Robert, unfortunately Robert's not here right now, do you still believe that the Battle of Winterfell didn't move the Game of Thrones story after episode 4? I've talked to Robert. I think that's ludicrous. I mean, it's all subjective, of course, and it's all in fun. I told him I think that's a ludicrous idea. The Battle of Winterfell completely moved the story forward. Absolutely it did. But anyway, unfortunately, Rob's not here to answer that question himself. So anyway, Super writes, Spider-Man Far From Home comes out on a Monday, Tuesday night. Apparently, yeah. Its official release date is a Tuesday. That means really the first screenings will be Monday night. And they did that, of course, to take advantage of the July 4th weekend. So we talked about that on the John Campea Show a little bit earlier today. Sean Medellin writes, want to go buy tickets online for Endgame this Friday night for my 4th viewing, and there's still a few showings being sold out in its 3rd weekend. Yeah, but look, I just went to go see Long Shot, and the theater sold out. Long Shot only made, what, about 10 million bucks? Long Shot only made about 10 or 11 million bucks, but there are still some individual screenings that are sold out, but it only made 11. So I have no doubt that you're going to see Endgame have a number of screenings are going to be sold out across the country, particularly if it's Friday night or Saturday night. But even low box office movies will get that. So I wouldn't read too much into that, Sean. But have a good time, dude, when you go see it. Absolutely have a good time. Alan Gonzalez writes, the record gets beaten every 10 years, talking probably about the all-time box office film champ. Apex Caliber writes, Multiverse could be a misdirect. Yeah, we talked about that. Far From Home boosts Endgame. I don't know if Far From Home will boost Endgame. I mean, it's not going to come out till July. Endgame's going to be pretty much done its theatrical run, so I don't see that. But yeah, we talked about that this morning, Apex. Totally. The whole multiverse thing could be a misdirect. Whether it is or isn't, we'll find out when the film comes out, but it's a possibility. I don't think it is, but it's a strong possibility. Mad Real Cinema writes, for my 4th and final watch of Endgame, I went to the same theater I saw the first Iron Man in. That's awesome. And it was also Iron Man's 11-year anniversary. Dude, that's really cool when you can have those experiences and kind of have those markers, those nostalgia anniversary type of markers. That's really cool. I love that you did that, man. So good on you. I hope you had a good time. Frederick Nicholas Jr. writes, Endgame was a phenomenal movie. One of the biggest applauses was when Thor cut Thanos' head off and said, I went for the head. I got so hyped. How did you feel about the scene? Honestly, I never had one. I've seen it 4 times. I've never heard an audience cheer at that part. There was a lot of gasps, like that. Like it was definitely a moment, but I never, and in the 4 screenings I've been in, and your screenings will be different than mine, but in the 4 screenings I've been in, I never heard an audience applaud at that. It was powerful and effective and a lot of gasps, but I never heard an audience applaud at that. But yeah, it was a really cool scene the way they set it up. Lone Wolf X6 writes, you work for Spider-Man. No, I work with him, not for... that's a great line. I work with Spider-Man. You work for Spider-Man? No, I work with Spider-Man. I don't work for... That was actually really funny. I love Hap. I love Happy in these movies. I really do. I'm really glad. I hope we get to see a lot of him in this movie because I really like him. Timothy Platt writes, finally saw Godzilla trailer in IMAX Joygasm. Dude, that trailer is phenomenal. I cannot... Now, I'm not quite as excited about it as Rob is because Rob's about to jump out of his mind, but I'm really looking forward to this Godzilla movie. I know a lot of you guys are too. All right. Joseph Mitchell writes, the sweet irony of Tom Holland warning you there's spoilers ahead. Can't wait for this movie. You do not ghost Nick Fury. That was a great line. But yeah, I think that's the first thing I thought as well. watching the trailer because Tom Holland has traditionally let things slip. So to have him at the beginning of a trailer saying, hey guys, there's Endgame spoilers in this, I did think as well, Joseph. That's the same thing that went through my mind, that there was a little bit of sweet irony in that. Dimsum05 writes, Gojira is the real waifu. I'm not quite sure what that means. Lone Wolf X6 writes, John, I finally saw Endgame and that last hour. I'm telling you, look, again, I have some issues with the first two acts. I do. There's some really high points. There's some low points. Overall, it's kind of down the middle, a little bit mediocre to me when it's all balances out. But the final hour changes all that. The final hour of this movie, I still contend, we'll see if I still feel this way a year from now, but I still contend that the final hour of Endgame is the single greatest hour, not just a scene, but the single greatest hour in comic book movie history. That elevates the entire film. To me, this movie is all about the final hour. I mean, look, there's some good stuff in the first two acts. There is. There's also some problematic things in the first two acts. But overall, I just loved it. I'm glad you had a chance to see it. And yeah, man, that last hour is just bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Anthony R. writes, Spider-Man 3, abducted from home. Spider-Man 4, homeless. Following, of course, on the theme of home having to be and everything. Somebody wrote, Spider-Man 3, Home Alone was one of the things, and there was a few memes going around about that, but I like that, Anthony. All right, Carson Thorell writes, Captain Marvel's power feels unearned and approaching Superman level. Like any other character, I want to see her struggle through power limitations and or character flaws that hold her power back. I disagree 100% with you on that. I 100% disagree with you. For a couple things. Hulk didn't earn any power. Hulk just hulks out and one punches out giant space worms with one punch. That's not earned. That's not built up power over time. That just is what he is. Thor, then again, when we meet Thor, Thor's already been the god of thunder for 1,000 years, so there's that as well. See, Captain Marvel isn't like Iron Man, where Iron Man had to build his first suit, figure it out, then build his second suit, figure it out, then build Mach 3, then build Mach 4, then build Mach 5, and blah, blah. And there's a gradual growing and progression of all that kind of stuff. Granted, that's all there. But, Captain Marvel, the way she gets her powers in the movies is that she just got absorbed with the power of an Infinity Stone. So she's just going to have a certain level of power and a certain level of strength right out of the gate. That's what's going to happen. Hulk turns into Hulk. He's just as strong as the Hulk is right out of the gate. Even Captain America to some degree he's battling Red Skull in his first movie and defeats Red Skull in his first movie. So yeah, I disagree with that. I disagree. You can't do... Captain Marvel isn't a character that grows into her power. That's not the type of character she is. Some characters do that, others do not. And she's the type of character who isn't. So no, she's not overpowered. She is what she is. She's Captain Marvel. That's the character. That's the character in the comics. That's the character in the movies. And it just feels the way it should progress and be. And remember, she's also been in possession of this power. When we meet her in Captain Marvel, she's been in possession of this power for years. It's just been suppressed because of this thing. And all of a sudden now this thing comes out and all this power comes rushing to the surface. Because remember, we don't see her at full Captain Marvel power through most of the first movie. It's not until the very end that she starts to realize that she has this power. She's very limited through most of the movie. So this whole thing of, there's no getting it, she's overpowered, right? No, that's nonsense. Most superhero movies, the character fully embraces and realizes what they are and what they have by the end. Even in Man of Steel, right? Kal-El, he's not Superman through most of that movie. Then he meets his father, he gets his family crest, blah, 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 and he starts to discover the power that he has as Superman. And he realizes that power by the end of the film. Captain Marvel was the exact same way. Hindered, limited, and held back through most of the film, and then near the end of the film realizes the full potential of her power and then utilizes that power. That's not unlike tons of other superhero movies. I don't know why some people now are just arbitrarily nitpicking that on just the Captain Marvel movie. We've seen it a lot of other times, and I don't think it's an issue. Personally, I don't think it's an issue. And also remember, in Infinity War, again, Thor takes out Thanos in one shot. It's not even a fight. Thor throws his best shot. Thanos, with a fully equipped with all the Infinity Stones gauntlet, gives Thor his best shot. They both of them take their best shot, and Thor cuts Stormbreaker right through Thanos' defenses like butter, buries it in his chest, and defeats Thanos, I should say. One shot. Lest we forget, in Endgame, Thanos knocks Captain Marvel the F out. He hits her with a shot and he knocks her out, and then we don't see her again until Tony's funeral. Thor takes him out in one shot. Captain Marvel got knocked the F out. I mean, so I disagree. I disagree. I think their film history disagrees. But anyway, that's just my kind of thought on that. Ashku writes, I have a debate with someone over the moment when the Ancient One says the stones have to be returned to the exact moment. He said it only means same timestamp and can be returned anywhere, while I believe that the stone had to be returned to the exact time and location where the stone was taken from. What are your thoughts? I thought it more had to be the exact time. So as soon as, Captain America has to be there in the bunker and see Tony walk away with the stone, then I think he immediately has to slip in and put it back. That's what I think. I don't know for sure, but that's kind of what I think. All right. Eli138 Productions writes, wasn't Gone with the Wind box office $3.44 billion? No. If you want to take into inflation and all that kind of stuff, it gets up there. It might even be like 3.7 or 3.8, but you can't take inflation into consideration unless you take the dozen other variables. Pardon me. There are dozens of variables. Inflation is just one. You don't just get to pick one variable and apply it unless you're going to take all the variables and apply them. So, yeah, if you take in inflation, it's that, but we don't count inflation, and there's a reason for that because we don't want to count all the other variables that work against it at the same time. Alan Gonzalez writes, Marvel Cinematic or Multiverse now, I really don't think they're going to invest in that. I think it's going to be short-lived. I really do. I might be wrong, and maybe they'll do it great. I have no insider information. I don't know. I'm just guessing like everybody else. Aaron H., note to self, don't tell Sansa's secrets. Yeah. Yep, Sansa gave her word and then immediately... Now, granted, she probably thinks it's in the best interest of the Seven Kingdoms. She probably thinks she's saving the world by spelling the secret. I get it. The greater good and all that kind of stuff. But yep, note to self, don't tell Sansa a secret. All right, where am I at here? I am at... There we go. Carson Thorell writes... I did like Captain Marvel's a little better when she said, hi, Peter Parker. It was endearing. I did love that shot. That was a good shot. When he looks up at her and is like, hi, I'm Peter Parker. Hey, Peter Parker. I thought that was cute the way she said that and all that kind of stuff. And then I like everything she did after that, right up until the point that Thanos knocked her the F out. Brandon Blake writes, on the Russo brothers Wikipedia page, filmography, it has them listed as Man of Steel 2 directors. I'm sure this isn't accurate, but please be accurate. Not true at all. Not true in the least. Matt Torres writes, hey, John, what's up with all the swearing in the MCU lately? Cap swore quite a few times in Endgame. Only a couple, 2 times maybe. And Fury calls Spider-Man bitch in the trailer. Well, it's all within the realm of PG-13. It's all perfectly fine. It's within the realm of PG-13, so I don't think there is. And actually, I think Captain America only swore once in Endgame when he looked up and saw his doppelganger and said, you gotta be shitting me. I mean, I think that's the only actual curse word he used. I mean, he said that's America's ass, but you're allowed to say that on television, right? You can even say bitch please on television now. So, I mean, really, I don't think there was much to it. It's all within the realm of PG-13, so it's all good to me. Lone Wolf X6 writes, binging all 3 seasons of Lucifer again, and the yoga episode's gold. LOL. Also, I want more Lucifer and Ella team-up episodes like the Vegas episode. I don't want too much of that, because then it might get a little bit stale. I want like 1 episode a season with them. By the way, Lucifer, the new season, drops on Netflix on Wednesday. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm almost as excited about this as I was about Endgame. Seriously. I love Lucifer. I cannot wait for the show to come back. I'm so totally stoked. All right. Chris Pevoto writes, congrats to Happy for being the longest MCU person. Yeah, Happy has been around since the first. Now, I don't know that he's been in the most MCU movies, but he's been around since Iron Man 1. So, well, then again, yeah, since Iron Man 1. But then again, I guess you could say Nick Fury is as well, because Nick Fury also appears in Iron Man. So it's a tie. Hap and Nick Fury. It's a tie. Keenan Jenkins writes, well, then I guess you could also say Agent Coulson. Right, as well. Anyway, Keenan Jenkins writes, Mysterio's lying about the multiverse, I think. That's what Robert thinks, too. He thinks that's a possibility. I concur that it's a possibility. I don't think that he is, but it is totally possible. So let's see how that all works out. Mark Blaser writes, so much comic book gasms. Bring back Weekly Hero. Hey, don't you worry. Weekly Hero is going to be coming back. It's just... we've got to make sure I get my schedule worked out because, guys, we're working 14, 16, 18-hour days. I'm working on the weekends. It's tough to find the time to do it, but we are committed to bringing the Weekly Hero back. It is going to be coming back, and it's going to be coming back sooner than you think, so keep your eyes open for it. Thanks for that, Mark. All right, Chris Pevedo writes, happy and... so you caught on to it, too. Happy and Furious the longest. Yes. R.D. Royal writes, do you think Miles Morales will show up at the end? I don't think so. But as with anything else in the MCU, anything's possible. But I don't think so, but it's possible. Lone Wolf X6, some would say I'm the reverse. Is that the line from Flash when she's talking to Eobard and I wanted to be a Flash, some would say I'm the reverse? Is that what that's from? I think that's what... I might be wrong about that, but I think that's what that's from. Fanimator writes, could The Rise of Skywalker flop like Solo? No. It's going to be $1 billion film. But again, I don't think it's going to reach the heights of Solo. Reach the heights of The Force Awakens like a $2 billion film. I don't think it's going to get there. I know there are some people who think it will, and maybe it will. But it'll at least be $1 billion film. That I have very little doubt about. All right, Ben Rayner writes, you realize that the second half of Back to the Future is a time heist. I didn't think about it in those terms before, Ben, but now I have. All right, guys, that will do it. We are now all caught up with all the super chats that you guys have sent in. Thank you so much for sending that stuff in, not just because you give us great things as film fans to talk about. I'm going to turn off the AC now just so... there we go. Not just because you give us great stuff to talk about, but also because when you send in that stuff, you support the channel as well and make these shows possible. So thank you so much for that, guys. Guys, that will do it for me for now. I'm going to go get myself ready and go watch Detective Pikachu. I think I can let you guys know what I think about it tomorrow. I think the review embargo... yeah, the review embargo is lifted, so I can talk about it tomorrow. Keep your eyes open for that. Guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.